of the Shandaken Conservation Advisory Council. Woo! Please rise for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. And now first, I would like to introduce the members of the Conservation Advisory Council. So we'll start with, in alphabetical order, with Nicole Caputo. Nicole designed our flyer. She's a graphic designer, and she also handles all the compost, makes compost out of the food waste that people drop off at the town hall. And she's very involved with pollinator gardening. Next, Michael Chaffee. Well, he couldn't be here, but in his absence, he sent the food. Robert Cruikshank. Yay. Robert is our specialist in solar and alternative energy. So if you have questions on any of these topics after the meeting, you can talk to our members or come to a meeting. We meet the third Monday of every month. Next, Catherine Del Tufo. Catherine is also an advocate for pollinator pathways. She's interested in our coming project called a Natural Resource Inventory for the town, and in creating a dark sky community. And if that's something that any of you would be interested in, I heard on the radio this morning that Tupper Lake is becoming one, and they're hoping the whole Adirondacks can be designated. And so if we started in Shandaken, maybe the whole Catskills could become a dark sky community. Karen Lee. Karen is our liaison to the Comprehensive Plan Committee, and she coordinated with the diner for the food tonight. Yes, we're lucky that we had Karen on board because we have vegan options, thanks to Karen. Maya Lilly can't be here tonight. She's a filmmaker who lives in Phoenicia. She's in Nigeria at a TED Talk giving a presentation about her work as a filmmaker about climate issues. And I am Beth Waterman, chair of the CAC. We all work together, but everybody has their own special interests. So the projects that we pursue grow out of what people are passionate about. Tonight's meeting will be devoted to our guest speakers. The only item of business is to approve the minutes from last month. If the members had a chance to look at the minutes, are there any additions or corrections? If not, may I have a motion to approve the minutes? Second? All in favor? Aye. All right. Now, I have several announcements. Please sign in. Okay, we got that over with. It's very important for your own safety to sign up here for the alert sign up so that you get alert messages telling you when hazardous weather or other forms of hazard can be expected. So if you haven't signed up yet, you should go to this website or call the town clerk, and she will put you on the alert system. Our next meeting will be on July 21st, and it will be a roundtable discussion about fire safety, and especially wildland fire, how residents can best prepare for and avoid the risk. And it will be local firefighters, a forest ranger from DEC, and a representative of the Catskill Forest Association. And we just hope to have a general discussion, identify who's responsible for what, and what needs, if any, we have in the town to boost our resources. So I want to extend my heartfelt thanks to our speakers tonight and to our town board for their support, and to our member, Michael Chaffee, of giving us the food, and especially to all of you in the audience for being here. Thank you. And now I'd like to introduce Heidi Emmerich and Max Kelly? Yes. From, well, I think you better explain your origins. Okay.
All right, thank you, Beth, and thank you everyone for coming out tonight. It's great to see such amazing turnout on a Monday night, and I just want to extend my thank you as well for everyone coming out and being interested in the topics of tonight, which are flood risk and some actions that individuals can take to mitigate their flood risk. So I'm Max Kelly. I'm with the Shandaken Watershed Stream Management Program. I'm at Cornell Cooperative Extension of Ulster County, and we receive funding from New York City DEP to do the Shandaken Watershed Stream Management Program. And so the whole topic of tonight is about flood risk. So before we get into how individuals can protect their house, protect their property, protect their land, we need to discuss a little bit about what really is the source of flooding. So I believe that most of us know here that the Catskills have a plethora of streams and rivers, and that's why a lot of us have moved here for these amazing water bodies. However, many of us have lived and seen flooding locally, and one reason of that is because of precipitation. So this is a map over on the left here that shows precipitation inches in New York from, or in the Northeast from 1991 to 2020. And you can see that the Catskills are really this dark area that receives some of the most rainfall in the state of New York, and even some of the most in the entirety of New England and the Northeast. And really the heart of that dark spot is Shandaken, which receives some of the most rainfall out of the whole Catskills. So when when a lot of precipitation falls on the landscape, some of it does get absorbed into the ground, but ultimately it does lead into the rivers and streams of our area. And current climate change models predict an increase in precipitation, and if we pursue a lower emission scenario, there'll be something like a 20 to 30% increase in precipitation, but higher emission scenarios do model up to a 50% increase in precipitation by the end of the 21st century. So this is really timely information that we should all be interested in, is what can we do to limit the effects of flooding? So when we look at the amount of precipitation that Phoenicia receives, here is a plot of monthly precipitation in Phoenicia by, this is inches, this is the month, and you can see that it's somewhat consistent throughout the year. Some months are a little bit more. However, when we add this blue, which is the top flood events that have happened on the Esopus Creek, and separate them by months, we see some separation here. And in the fall, that's because of our hurricanes and tropical storms. However, in earlier months of the year, March, April, that's due to rain on snow events. So when the landscape is covered in snow or ice on top of snow, instead of getting that precipitation that is absorbed into the ground and becomes mixed with soil, it instead runs off as if the landscape could be thought of as, pavement almost. So we've covered what's kind of the source of flooding, but where does flooding occur? It's kind of a simple question, but flooding occurs in the floodplain, which is the low-lying adjacent area next to streams. And we're saying it's the floodplain as if it's a separate entity of the stream, but ultimately the floodplain is part of the stream. It's built by the stream, and it's part of the stream. And streams need that access to floodplain. They need the ability for water to exit out onto the banks. If there's an inability to exit out onto the banks, the stream may cut lower, get steeper, it might get wider, and it could erode into the stream banks on either side, which presents an issue if your house is, or your property or a building of note is close to the bank. Also, when water gets onto the floodplain, it can allow some of that water in the channel to become absorbed into soil or just pass through the area quicker. So this is kind of an ideal situation, but not a lot of our streams look like this, or not a lot of our valleys look like this. This is a more typical valley that we have here, which is we have very steep valley walls, and the floodplain is historically was the spot to build. That was the flat area. And so we kind of covered that when water, it can get out of the stream channel and risk flooding houses, which we commonly think of as inundation or water getting, up to a house. But there's also risks of erosion, so that if the, we have these steep valleys, we have houses on one side, roads on the other. So there's a serious risk not only of inundation, but also erosion, which is a unique of interest to the Catskills. So I'm going to hand it off to Heidi Emmerich here, who's going to cover a little bit more about this topic.
All right. Thanks, Max. Oh, sorry. Thank you. All right. Max and I are going to do a little double dutch here. So I'm Heidi Emmerich. I am from the Ulster County Department of Environment. I am a certified floodplain manager, and I work to support all things flood hazard mitigation in the Ashokan watershed. So I work with Max regularly and try to bring county resources to the towns of Shandaken, Woodstock, Olive, and Hurley to help people be better prepared for flooding. So Max did a great job explaining a little bit about floodplains. I'm going to talk about flood zones, which are maybe sometimes not always the same thing. A flood zone is a regulatory term, if you will, and it's based on this thing called the 100-year flood. How many people have heard that term? Good. How many people expect that term is not really accurate anymore? All your hands should be up. The one thing to think about is that it does not mean that it will occur once in 100 years, right? The 100-year flood has a 1 in 100 chance of occurring or being exceeded in any given year. So the better term is the 1% annual chance flood. So it has a 1% chance of occurring in any given year. We talk about this term, even if it's maybe not really the reality anymore, but we talk about it because it's the base flood. It is the thing that all of our rules and regulations are based off of at this point. So it's what we've got to work with. So that's what we're talking about when we talk about a base flood. And a base flood, again, it can happen every year, not for 200 years, or it can happen 2 or 3 times in a year, or be exceeded. So Max talked about those probability numbers and precipitation increasing. If you are located in a special flood hazard area, the area where the base flood is expected to extend out to reach, to inundate, you can expect a 26% chance of receiving a flood at that property within the 30 years of your mortgage. That was the old number. Now that we're watching different, precipitation models, and we're really looking at predictive modeling, that number is likely to be around 45% of chance of experiencing a flood at that home in the flood zone within the 30 years of your mortgage. If you look at some of the more aggressive scientific models that are out there, particularly for our area, that number can be as high as 71%. So the reality is we know we've flooded a lot. We've got to be ready for more. It's not a matter of, I'm going to laugh at Anna because we heard this several times today in our training, but it's not a matter of if, it's when. And we really need to be prepared. So how do you know if you're at risk, right? You might be thinking, okay, some of you may be new here, some of you may have lived here forever and you've never flooded. Great, wonderful. But how do you find out what your risk is? To start, FEMA and the National Flood Insurance Program have published flood insurance rate maps. And these maps show boundaries of that 1% annual chance flood, along with what's known as the 500-year flood. And we'll get into that quickly. These are the QR codes, but your Ulster County Parcel Viewer also has some really great resources. So I'll leave that up just in case anybody wants to snap a photo. I got one. You don't have to if you don't want to. We can send this out later, but. Yeah. All right, I'm going to move on. Is that okay? I see some phones still up. Only in the interest of time. Okay, so let's say you've snapped your QR code and you're at the Ulster County Parcel Viewer, which I'll use because we've got some really great tools. The FEMA tool is the more official tool. It's more for regulatory purposes, but our map has pretty much all the same information, and quite frankly, it's a little bit easier to see the aerials. You're going to navigate to Ulster County Parcel Viewer, you're going to click your map layers, and you're going to click the FEMA adopted flood hazard, and you're going to get something like that, and you're going to say, what is all of that? What do those colors mean? Our Parcel Viewer doesn't actually tell you what those colors mean, unfortunately, so I'm going to tell you. So all of this blue around here is your special flood hazard area. You heard me say that. That is your 1% annual chance flood zone. It's also noted as Zone A or Zone AE. This is the extent from there to there of where this channel is going to flood into its floodplain. That's what that blue is representing. Then you've got this peachy color on the outside. That is the extent of what would be reached, according to models, of the 0.2% annual chance flood, that 500 year that some people have heard of before. And then you've got this red striped area. What is going on there? Does anybody know what that is, besides the fact that it says it on the thing? Yes?
Is it Zone AE?
It is Zone AE, but it's the red stripe is what's called the floodway, and that is a highly regulated zone. It is a zone where there is a lot of velocity. It is the area that's absolutely necessary to convey those floodwaters. And so you kind of get a little bit of a understanding of the dynamic here, and then you've got these wavy lines going across with some stuff on it. We want to take a look at what that is. That's your base flood elevation. So that is the elevation of those floodwaters during that base flood, during that 1% annual chance flood. But we're going to look at it in a different way. Let's say that's your business. In that 1% annual chance flood event, the waters are going to expect to be about that high. That's what that base flood means. So FEMA, the NFIP, your town's local code will refer to the base flood elevation. That's where that is on this particular building. Then you've got something else to think about. In New York State, you have a design flood elevation. So if you ever want to make major improvements to this building, if you want to build new, you've got to build 2 feet above the base flood elevation because we want you to be safe. We want your building to be safe. We want all the things that you put underneath your first floor, all of the duct work, all of that, we want that to be above the base flood. And you've got some really great tools that Max is going to tell you more about to help you understand your risk even more. We're talking depths. And you're going to learn about your local flood analysis. You've got studies that tell you more about how to figure out what your depths are at your individual properties. So we'll give it back to Max.
Thanks. So in the New York City west of Hudson watershed, there's a program called the Local Flood Analysis Program, or LFA program. Are people familiar with this? Has anyone heard of an LFA or local flood analysis? Okay, some people. So the LFA program started post-Tropical Storm Irene, And it's a partnership between New York City DEP, stakeholders, the town, AWSMP, CWC is often there. And what it really looks at, it's a process where the town has identified an area where there is repeat flooding, or there's an area of their town that they're interested in understanding why is flooding occurring there. And it's ultimately a process that's committee driven, and what that means is that the town applies for funding from, and then this committee is formed, and this committee drives what areas to look at, what is of interest to the community. So if the community is interested in protecting a firehouse or protecting some anchor businesses, that's looked at intensely in the engineering report and the engineering analysis that's looking at the source and what possible actions could be done to address flooding. And it's an iterative process of meetings where this committee drives the engineers to look at what is of interest to the community. This is presented at a series of public meetings, and the comments from those public meetings drives the engineers to then look at those approaches, and that's ultimately how there's a lot of community engagement. And the final report or final product is a report that is typically pretty thick and pretty dense, but it shows what opportunities could alleviate flooding in the town, as well as opportunities for individuals to ease their risk of flooding and what opportunities they should look at. And we're going to hear more about that later. And it also opens up the town and individuals up for funding, which is good because things are expensive. So it's always good when you have funding opportunities to help you out there. So the town of Shandaken has had a couple of local flood analysis, and I'll zoom in on these. So one of them was the Shandaken-Alabin local flood analysis. Here's us right here. So this looked at flooding that's happening from coming down Bushnellsville Creek, the Esopus, going past Town Hall, coming in from Broad Street Hollow. And all of these are available on the ashokanstreams.org website. If you're interested in finding out or reading these reports, I can definitely help you afterwards, after this presentation, getting to the relevant report. So just seek me out and I'll help you out. There was Phoenicia Mount Tremper that looked at Phoenicia, looked at Mount Tremper. This is 6 miles of the Esopus that was studied rigorously by engineers to look at what is going on in the Esopus and what are potential solutions to flooding. And then the most recent in Shandaken was the Pine Hill LFA that looked at the Birch Creek watershed. Yeah, Giggle Hollow, it's a good one, right? So I'm going to hand it back to Heidi here. And
One specific LFA question.
Yeah.
Do you want to ask the question?
Can you come up and speak into the microphone so we can hear you?
We can repeat it.
yeah, I can repeat the question.
My question is, you keep talking about flooding, and I'm curious, where does erosion fall into that?
Yeah.
If communities looking at problems that are mostly affecting businesses, what about also homeowners? Because the homeowners are part of the economy and provide revenue to businesses. So curious how this all ties in. Is there funding? I mean, you're at
Yeah.
is there funding for erosion?
Yes.
mitigation?
Yes. So I'm going to repeat the question first. So the question was, do the reports look at erosion specifically to residents, and is there funding available to residents? And the answer is yes. The reports specifically look at erosion potential from flooding. So what areas of the watercourse is causing erosion? And it then lays out specific things that landowners and residents that are within that study area can do to um, address that, and it creates a pathway for funding, which we're going to discuss shortly. I do think that we might want to hold questions until the end. I'm sorry. We're learning as we're doing it. Yeah. Yeah.
But what distance of each different river is right within your plot of land, or your district, what distance are you talking about? Because New York kind of owns it, and there's so many different creeks that do different things. Now, my misunderstanding is if you're unfortunately the one that has to work down or you're not really in trouble, the other places usually don't get if they're, involved, not involved, they don't have the hardship. They get the tail end of it, whatever it may be. So I was just curious, this is like first thought, this is the memory of the separation, there's different changes that are taking more inclined to want to reach out higher and what's structurally blocked. Now to run down the water and have just the regular creek sound. And Vernon Valley and even Shandaken itself is 11 miles apart within the town of Spalding, between Pinedale and Shandaken, which is kind of the really valley part. The outer skirts, you have the hill.
Yeah.
But I'm just.
Yeah. So I think the question was kind of the extent of these reports a little bit, and why. And I will say that more reports are. Say again?
Like a home. There were the city that are paid for, that the watershed is kind of their water. Is from, what I was kind of brought up. Right or wrong, I really don't know, but I'm still living in this area for a long time. It's kind of true.
Okay.
It's just what it is.
Yeah.
Sorry.
No, it's okay. And I'm would love to talk to you afterwards because I would like to mention that if you do have questions about the stream near you, and if you're in one of these areas, you can come to the Ashokan Watershed Stream Management Program office. We're open to the public. We're in Shokan. We're right by the Dollar General. So if the questions tonight aren't answered, you can come to me tomorrow morning and ask them. I'm going to hand it off to Heidi, and we're going to continue with the presentation here. Thanks, Heidi.
I just have a few more things, thanks Max, to go over. Once you get a town adopts a local flood analysis, it's your tool. There's going to be recommendations. As Max said, the whole process was community driven. Pine Hill, we had lots and lots of participation. It was great. It was my first time doing a local flood analysis. I met some folks who turned around and actually did some implementation on their own based on that community driven result. So you're going to have recommendations based on science, based on what's actually feasible here in the area, and they may include some structural replacements, floodplain enhancements or creations, road realignment, channel restoration, but they may also include individual measures that individual landowners, homeowners, property owners can take, and it's going to give you. Unfortunately, we could spend an hour and a half just on this part. It's going to give you tools, it's going to give you maps that will help you see the extents and help you see, oh, I'm at risk, and look, I'm in this section, and looks like it's recommended that I do X. And then I'm going to follow up with the CWC to see what I can do about X. And so that's kind of how it's going to work. And I really, really encourage you to take a look. Max had those QR codes, but we can put them up again at the end. Look at your local flood analysis, speak to us, speak to your town leaders, and see where you are for your own risk, and see what of these mitigation actions you might be able to take on, because it's important to adapt to these changing weather conditions. And with that said, adaptation, mitigation, for every dollar we spend in federal dollars, $7 are saved in future damages. Regular people, for every dollar we spend, it's $13. So when you're talking big money and you're investing, $10,000 in a project or something, it's 13 times that in savings. So what is the life you've built here? What is your home worth? Sometimes it's hard to put money towards these things. We've got a lot of funding here to help you out. We really want to encourage you to think of it in terms of protecting the life you've built here. It's really, really important to think about these mitigation actions because we want these small communities to stay vibrant and viable with these changing weather conditions. So an ounce of prevention is worth a pound of cure. One LFA recommendation that I do really want to touch upon is considering flood insurance. I don't know if everybody knows this, but your regular homeowner's insurance does not cover you for flooding. Even if your basement floods and you've got contents down there, it won't be covered. So flood insurance is the only way to cover more completely and more fully. You've got the NFIP, National Flood Insurance Program. That's a subsidized, federally funded program. I will be honest, it's not super cheap, but those same numbers, you could, without flood insurance, pay way more when you have out-of-pocket expenses if you're not covered, especially since a federal declaration is not always called when, I don't think you can really necessarily rely on federal declarations being called in the future. We have really localized microbursts and these really intense short rainfalls that are very local to us, and we have to be more prepared as individuals. The average claim from a flood-insured homeowner is about $69,000, and if you wait for federal assistance, if a federal declaration is called, the average funding that you get is only about $5,000. In Sandy, it was somewhere between $7,000 and $8,000. So it's really important to think about investing in yourself because according to FEMA's figures, just 1 inch of water can cost you $25,000 in damages. So that's why we always put it as an LFA recommendation, and I always try to encourage people. It's easy to say as soon as your mortgage is paid off, I don't want to pay this flood insurance bill anymore. But think about what you're not protecting any longer when you do that. Just for figures real quick, the average policy costs are about $1,500 in Ulster County. My colleagues at CWC are going to talk about all of the different mitigation actions you can physically do to your home. And so I just wanted to, while I'm still up here, mention one option you do have potentially, if it's something you ever want to consider, especially if you've got some serious erosion issues or serious inundation issues, you may be recommended in the LFA to consider a flood buyout. So the New York City funded flood buyout is available to homeowners. It's a willing seller, willing buyer process. No one's going to pressure you. There's a neutral partner. I happen to be the town's outreach and coordinator, but I don't work for the town. I don't work for the DEP. I am a neutral party, and I just provide information. And if it's ever anything anyone has any questions about, you can always ask. Because the program, if you've lived in your home since before Irene, the program, if you're found eligible, will offer you for your home pre-Irene, pre-damage costs. So it's very, very fair, and we really just want to see people who are the most at severe risk find a safe opportunity for themselves. And there's lots of benefits for natural floodplains, and all of the land ends up being restored to recreation and natural lands. On that note, I'm going to kick it over to my colleagues at CWC. They are a fantastic partner. I love working with them. They do so much work in the community, and they fund the portions of the program post-LFA, post-local flood analysis, that help you all do property protection measures at your particular homes, businesses, establishments. So Joe and John, who's going first? Take it away. Thank you. Yeah, that one's gonna go.
Okay.
Yeah.
I'm gonna stand over here a little bit out of the way so everybody can see the slides, hopefully. Okay, I'll try to talk a little louder. All right, my name is John Matheson. I am the environmental engineering specialist as well as a program manager for CWC, Catskill Watershed Corporation. Along with me is Joe Bacci. He is going to be my one that's going to take over the flood program eventually. So I've got other things I got to move on to. So I'm going to just touch base on a lot of the things that CWC does offer communities that have, like Heidi touched on. Once you've done a local flood analysis, you can be eligible for funding through Catskill Watershed Corporation. And so anywhere in these local flood analysis areas, I think we've done 27 of them so far, are available for funding as long as there's been a recommendation within the LFA. So On the left-hand side, recommended by a community LFA, residential relocation assistance, which is, could be, you know, relocating, you're getting you out of the floodway, floodplain, moving you to another piece of property so we can buy property for you to get relocated to. Business relocation assistance, basically the same thing. We get businesses out of the floodplains into an area where it's dry. Critical community facility relocation assistance, alteration of public infrastructure. So I'm going to get into some slides as we go, and you'll start seeing some of these things that I'm mentioning here now. Property protection measures, same thing. We can get into like floodproofing, wet floodproofing, dry floodproofing, elevating. We can do all these kind of things for you for funding purposes, and I'll explain all the funding as we get going too. Community-wide elimination of potential sources of pollution like propane tanks, oil tanks. Doesn't matter if your oil tank's in the basement of your house, we can pay for that 100% to be anchored down. If a propane tank's out in your backyard, same thing. We can anchor it down so it doesn't go floating away in the next flood event and cause pollution to the water sources around. Stream construction, we've done a few of these. You'll see some of these in the slides that's going to follow as well. This woman touched on erosion back here. We get projects where we try to partner with the local soil and waters. So this way they take the lead on getting the design done and maybe construction funding, and we'll step in and assist with some of the funding, because some of these projects get very, very expensive. And so therefore we have to try to partner up with other partners that we have to get these projects done. So this way it's a full, good project all the way through from start to finish. And then throughout the entire watershed, residential relocation assistance, business relocation assistance, and all participating within the city flood buyout program, which Heidi touched on, which I'm going to touch on again a little bit further. Tank anchoring, as I mentioned. A little bit off on the slide, so it says we'll go up to 330 gallons on an oil tank and up to 420 gallons. It's supposed to be 420 pounds, that's 100 gallons. So what we do is, those are the ones that we can usually approve when it comes in front of Joe or myself, no problem. Somebody brings an application to us, as long as the price is right, we can approve it and get it going. Anything over those numbers will have to go to our board of directors for approval. And we have a 15-member CWC board directors, and they usually, when they see things like that come in front of them, it's automatic. They just, yep, let's get it done. And that's what CWC's been about, and that's what we're going to continue to be about. We try to get projects done as fast as possible and get the biggest bang for the buck. So, you have a question back there?
Yes, do you deal with the DEC as far as the permit is concerned?
I'm sorry, with the DEC what?
The DEP for the permit, to get the permit?
We don't get involved with berms.
Okay.
No permits, he's saying, but you make sure you get all the DEC and DEP permits.
Oh, we work with them both to get permits out for a lot of projects, like the stream projects that we do, bridge relocations, rebuilding, whatnot. We'll work with the DEC and DEP both.
We just get denied by the DEC to do some work in our DEP side. To do some work in our, because of the erosion problem that we have on our river,
Okay.
Warner Creek, and the DEC refused for us to do any kind of work on it. So that's why I'm asking you.
Yeah. So we're more of a funding agency. I mean, we work with the DEC and DEP on getting projects done. I can't speak for what the DEC or DEP tells you, because they are the regulatory agencies. And so therefore, they're going to make the final decision on what gets done and what doesn't get done. So it's unfortunate sometimes some projects get overlooked only because they're not the larger scale projects, and they'll say, well, we want to get something that's going to be the biggest bang for the buck. So, you know, sometimes the little projects, little streams get overlooked, and I'm sorry about that, but that's something that happens. So,
Question.
yes, sir.
Do you do stream bank stabilization?
Yes, we do. But again, I kick it back to, we always try to get the local soil and waters to get involved first. Usually the applicant will go to them first, because it is a stream project, and soil and water is the stream agency. So they tend to usually do the designs for that work to be done. And then at that point, if they haven't got all the funding they need to get a project done, they will come to CWC and ask us to partner up with them to get that project done. And I'm going to show you some slides of that too as well. Okay, and then we're just going to kick it on to the next one here. Okay, so property protection measures. We do a feasibility study for a lot of people that has LFA communities done. People can come to us and say, well, I'd like to get a study done on my house to see what's going to be the best possible solution for me to go forward with some type of flood protection measure, whether it be wet flood proofing, dry flood proofing, elevating it. We have all the different things we can do. So we will pay $5,000 to our consultant, who's Labella right now, to have that done for you. No cost to the applicant at all. CWC covers the cost. And then goes into design costs. So then, once the feasibility study is done, the consultant will come up with a cost of what they think it will cost. We'll use elevating the house for an example. They'll come up with a cost, and CWC will pay for 10% of those construction costs, which is the design, and that's usually 100% of the design that gets done. And then we get into the construction cost part of it, and now this is where the applicant has an obligation. They can go through the feasibility study, they can go through the design, not a penny spent. You get into the construction end of it, now you have a full-blown design in your hands, get plans, and so now you're going to be responsible for 25% of those construction costs. CWC will pay 75% of those construction costs to get the project done for you. So now, 25%, some people look at us and say, oh God, I can't afford it. And it's true. Because I mean, some of these projects, when you get into an elevating of a home, you can be looking at a $200,000 or more project. And so then you get 25%, it's $50,000. So a lot of people can just say, I can't do it. All right, you have no obligation at this point, so you can walk away. You can just say that's it. But we have been doing more and more, especially in the Prattsville, Hunter area. We've been doing more and more of these projects where people are just saying, yeah, let's do it. I'm going to bite the bullet for 25%. Yes, ma'am.
I thought I recall hearing of some very low interest rate loans available from the CWC.
Yeah, that has nothing to do with us. I mean, it has something to do with CWC, but not
Different program.
different program. We have economic development and what do you want to call it? Like
Yeah, local loans.
yeah, basically 2 other people work in that department at CWC, and so when somebody comes to us for that low interest loan, they go see either Lynn or Barbara, and those 2 will set you up and go through that whole process. Joe and I don't get involved with that.
But can you apply with them for residential or no?
Mostly commercial, I believe.
Like little
Yeah.
business loans.
Yes.
Thank you.
Yes.
Don't quote us on
Yeah. Yeah. I don't think they got involved with the residential end of it because I remember a couple things coming up recently, and it was just like no. So. All right. So now we'll get into some pictures. So this way it can be a little more entertaining than just talking about things. So on the left picture here, this is a house in Prattsville, just recently elevated last year, and the owner came to us and said, you know, he did the study, he did the design. Then he bought into the 25% for getting the work done. They lifted the whole house up 11 feet in the air. Wow. All right. And with that, the foundation in the middle picture, I haven't seen point there. Middle button right there. That was where that house was. So they picked it up in the air and moved it back onto the property another 10 feet. And they built a brand new foundation 10 feet away from where it was, because this is where the old foundation was. They picked it up and moved it back. And then they put this poured concrete foundation in. It's hard to see, but there's vents, there's flood vents all the way around the foundation, which is a requirement. And the house is up now 2 feet above the base flood elevation. That's the important number. Whenever we do a project for anything that we do for elevating, it has to be the finished floor has to be 2 feet above the base flood elevation. So the base flood elevation, as Heidi touched on, is the 100-year flood event. So that's what we have to work off of. So now this is another house in Prattsville. That's what it looked like in the beginning. And that's what it looks like now. So, and this has all been funded by CWC, both of these, to get them done. All right. And then this is down in Walton in Delaware County. This is the Townsend Street School. And it's an elementary school in Walton. And it sits directly smack dab in the floodplain. The problem there with they don't get high velocity waters there where the building is. However, they get a lot of water. And what happens mostly is in the springtime, there's a brook right next to it called Westbrook. And that brook gets ice in it that's very, very thick. And then when it thaws out, it breaks up and it backs up and gets all the water coming right at that school. So what they did, they came to us and said, what can we do to help alleviate the problem? So what we came up with was flood logs at every door. So these are all temporary. They are not in place all the time. The side rails here are in place all the time. But these flood logs are put on each door. They can have them done in about 5 minutes. So whenever they have notification there's going to be a flood event, their maintenance staff is out there putting these flood logs in. And what they do is, you can see the little rollers on the side. Each log is 1, 2, 3. That's one at each. And they all go into those little rollers and they get locked down. and there's a gasket in between each one of them. And everyone will lock and seal, no water can get through that into that building. And the other thing we did here was these HVAC vents were down here. You can see where they were. And so whenever you got a flood event, water was coming through them and getting in the building. So then we moved them all up high, as well as there was some doors. I don't have a picture, but right kind of here there was a door. Eliminated the door. So it just didn't really have a big purpose. So we just said, no, get rid of it. This is a business down in Walton, Delaware County as well. It was a commercial business, and it was a major project. We spent almost $1 million on this project. It's a business, and now he has, I believe, 7 occupants in the building doing business there. What you're seeing here are those guards for the flood logs. So where the doors are, same thing. Get those logs on in a moment's notice when you're going to have a flood event.
Is that spelled L-O-G-S, a flood log, or?
LOGS.
Okay.
Yep, like a log. Yep. There's different terms for them. Flood barriers, flood logs.
A lock or a log?
Log, yep.
John, what kind of buildings can do dry floodproofing?
What kind of buildings? Mostly commercial buildings. Yep. So this is the same building that you just seen previously. Okay, this is the building down in Walton, and this is inside the building. So what we did here, like I said, we spent about $1 million on this building. We cut the whole floor system right out of it. And at that point, what we did, because they were getting so much water in the basement, this is where you're seeing the basement here. This is approximately 7 feet from here to there. And what the design came back with is flowable fill. So this is over here, that's the flowable fill. They filled the whole thing. 1,250 cubic yards of flowable fill. So we put all that in, brought it up to level, and then they poured on top of that another 2 feet of concrete. And then above that, another 4 inches of concrete to put the radiant tubing in. And next slide, this is the same building. So now you got the floor done, and this is, they put the rubber membrane over so it acts as like an interior bathtub. So now you have an area where no water can get into. And they built these walls up the side of it, off that rubber membrane, all the rebar in place. And now, like I said, you form basically a major bathtub inside that doesn't get any water. So that's what we always kept referring to as the bathtub. And all the drains, all these waste lines and everything that were put in, all had to have a check valve put in outside the building so no water could get in through the sewer during our flood event. And over here, this is the outside of the building. This is where the windows were, and they just filled it all in. So this way no water can get in. Whoops.
John, before.
Yep, go.
Can you talk a little bit about having a utility room?
Yeah, we don't have any of those slides? No, okay. So Joe brought up a point about a utility room. So mostly on residential type structures, what we can do is, we've done a few of them already, is some people won't go for the full-blown, I can't elevate, or I can't pay for this or that, I can't afford it, which is okay. Robert Drake, who's a board member here in Shandaken, just had that similar situation. He couldn't afford the full-blown elevating or filling in the basement. So he got approved from CWC to, one, get all of his utilities out of the basement, including electrical, heating, hot water heater, oil tank, get it out of the basement. And what we did was, we're going to have a utility room built onto his house, about 120 square foot room, to get all those utilities in that room so they're above the base flood elevation, so they won't be affected anymore by flood waters. And so now his basement is just going to be vacant. Eventually, someday, he said he'll come back to us. He wants to do exactly what they did here, do the flowable fill in the basement and fill the basement. It makes the whole structure solid and secure so no water can get in. Yes, ma'am? It's a form of concrete, but it's a lot easier to work with than solid concrete. And when you put flowable fill in, it just flows itself in naturally and levels off, and they have very little work to do as far as troweling it off, because they don't really have to trowel it off. It's just something to fill it in. And it has density, I think it's 4,500 PSI.
It's non-structural.
Yeah, yeah. But it fills it in, so therefore no waters can penetrate it ever again, so. All right. Whoop, got a question back here.
So, I'm not clear on all this. So, all of us are now eligible because Phoenician participated in the local flood analysis?
The LFA areas are eligible. So anybody within the LFA area is eligible. If you get back in the backwoods of Shandaken, no.
So how does, okay, so in
Yes. That's an up-and-coming LFA from what I understand. So-
Chichester is being pursued as a possible upcoming LFA area.
Very near
So it might be soon eligible.
So what would make it a priority? What would make it last?
The town needs to go forward with deciding on that.
Yeah, I think it is a top priority. They understand that it's like next on the list basically, and I think we're gonna see the beginning of that Chichester LFA
Yeah.
before the end of this year. But if you and your neighbors are interested in, participating or recommending through the process, certainly let the town know. Let the town know it feels urgent to you, and we can, work towards advancing that. They've got to come to us, to the AWS for funding. That's gonna be approved, and then we'll move forward, and then once that's complete, 10 months, a year, somewhere in there, around, then that will open up.
The floodgates for us, yeah.
Floodgates.
So no, we use that a lot. We laugh about it, but it opens up the floodgates for funding is what we do. So, yeah. So, all right. So we're getting into some stream construction now. We have several projects that we've done with stream projects. Some we've done on our own, but like I said, majority of the time we always try to have Soil and Waters take the lead on it, and then we assist with trying to fund it and get it done. So design costs, same thing. There's no cost share. It's 10% of construction costs, which always equivalents to us paying for the whole thing. No expense to you. Construction costs, not required, no cap on the stream project. And then property acquisition necessary for the project. Sometimes we have to go in and get easements, or we have to take and acquire a piece of property to get the project done. And so we always pay fair share. We have it appraised. An appraisal will come in. If we like it, it's good. We're ready to go. So then, some of the stream projects. So this one is up in Tannersville. Joe and I were just there today. The project's been done for over a year now. This is a $1.3 million project that we did. In the beginning phases, you can kind of see how there's eroding the bank away on the left side over there, right there. And this is a road right here. This is Railroad Avenue. And it just kept eroding away, and that street was jeopardized. So what we did, they came in, Evergreen Construction was the contractor, and they just started cutting down all these trees down through here. And this is a dewatering system. So they were dewatering the whole time doing it through this large pipe all the way down to the other end to get the water out so they could do the work. And then now we're getting into the actual construction of the project and the finished phases of the project. So now on the left, this is still under construction. What they're doing here is they're building a large wall of rock to hold the bank back. So this way the bank could not erode anymore. And it also stabilizes the stream so the stream stays within intact, hopefully most of the time within its channel. And in the middle slide, this is the bank finalized here, so you don't even see any of that rock hardly anymore. Once in a while you might see an outcrop of it, but most of the time it's just covered up. You don't see it. Has jute mesh on it with grass and seed and topsoil. And then the finished project on this side here, you can see the grass is taken very well. You see the rock at the very bottom of it where the stream bank is. And this was sort of a high water event, not a real high water event, but not bad. And then we created a floodplain all on this side over here, so that if we do get a major flood event, a lot of these waters will spread out to that area and slow the velocity down as it goes through that area of the village of Tannersville.
And now it's a park. It's a dog walk.
Yeah. And this is another stream project we just did. We worked with Delaware County Soil and Water on. This was in the village of Andes in Delaware County. This is the Andes Central School property. They had, as you can see right there, they had an old stone-laid wall. This is the stream channel. They had an old stone-laid wall here. It was failing. It was falling into the stream. It was eroding the bank. So the contractor on this one was Lefevre Excavating out of Bovina. And they came in, started digging the whole thing out. And then they started getting precast units brought in. So they redid the whole stream bank on both sides with these precast units instead of having the old stone laid there that could fail again. So now we have a secured stream bank all the way down through there. And come on. So this is more of the project here. As you see, we had high water during the actual construction, so they had to get after the dewatering part of it because the DEP got a little anxious on it. And so you see the pump up there, they're dewatering right there. And then this is more of the finished project now. So you can see how nice the walls look. The fencing's not on here in these pictures yet, but now there's like a black rail fence on both walls, because like I said, it is a school. So therefore, we had to protect it so no kids went out and fell off the edge of the wall. So we put fence up. And then you can see the channel now is stabilized. And we had a major storm last August. And right after they finished the project, and then this was the end of it right here. This is after the flood event, and it held up very well. And we have all down through here, this is all a floodplain that's been created now. So the stream channel went from being very narrow to wider, so this way it could take the flow of the velocity of the water and spread out. And then alteration of public infrastructure. You want to take over for a minute, or you want me to keep going? You got it. All right. All right. So, so alteration of public infrastructure, that gets into like bridges and stream banks, et cetera. We will go in mostly and do bridges, big culverts, get them upsized, because a lot of the problems that we're seeing around the watershed are that they are undersized. We just finished one in Greene County, town of Hawkett, which is just up over the hill from here. And again, that was a $1.3 million project. It was a culvert that was way undersized, and the 10-year flood event would overtop it and shut that road down completely. So anybody on the upper end of Hawkett could not get out. So we stepped in with assistance, working with Greene County, and they provided some funding towards the project as well. And we upsized it and made it a bridge now instead of a culvert. And now that bridge will take the 100-year flood event. So that's everything we do. Whenever we do a bridge, we always try to make sure it's going to take the 100-year flood event through it. So basically, that's a recap of everything that we've been talking about, where they just what we can and can't do. Whoops, sir. So this is down here in Ulster County, town of Olive, Burger Hollow. I guess it's called, right?
It's just Burger Road.
Burger Road, okay. So that used to be a culvert, as you can see right there. That was the culvert. And same thing, it was not taking the flow of the water during a major flood event. So we stepped in and built a box culvert. And it's because it's less than 20 feet, so it's a box culvert, it's not a bridge. Anything over 20 feet becomes a bridge. And as you can see, it's a lot bigger than what was there, and we can still, it's all precast, so it's gonna hold up and stay where it's supposed to. And now this is up on Mulberry Hollow, town of Olive. This is a complete bridge project that we got involved with, and we provided funding along with Ulster County on that one. And they tore the whole bridge right out completely, and they started doing all new wing walls, all rebar, everything, and then that's the finished product there. I mean, they can stabilize you got a bridge that's raised up now, has better wing walls. It's all precast concrete on the bridge, and then they rip wrap the whole banks along the bridge for the rocks to stabilize the banks so it doesn't wash out. And then tank anchoring, which Joe's getting very involved in now. I touched a little bit on it in the beginning. So we have, these tanks that we can, oil tanks and propane tanks. And I don't really care what size they are. I mean, it says here, up to 330 gallons. If people have tanks, if it's over that, I'll take it to our board. Our board will get it approved. Ideally, we want to get as many of these things done as possible. So therefore, they're not floating down in rivers during flood events. And so far today, I think we're 120, somewhere around there. We've anchored so far within the watershed. And I'll get into some slides of that. So this is the typical anchoring. So the left picture over there, that's oil tanks in somebody's basement. And what they do is, somebody say, well, I already got a slab. Well, we have the whole process engineered. So therefore, even if you have a slab there, chances are it's only 4 inches. So we're not going to accept that. So what they do is they go in, they cut that section of slab out, dig down a little bit, and they put a 12-inch reinforced slab in that area where the tanks have got to be. And reinforced, it has rebar in it, the whole 9 yards. And then once the slab has been poured, they'll come in, reset the tanks back on that slab, and they put these anchors. You can see kind of what they look like right there. They put them in the concrete when it's wet. They go down in, that's why it's got to be a 12-inch slab. They go down in about 8 inches, these anchors do. So this way, the right part of the concrete, when it's dry, it's solid. And then either propane tanks or the oil tanks, they come in and put these straps over top of them, and they secure them down, they cinch them down, and they don't move. They stay there. It's been proven. They just stay right there. I mean, I got slides somewhere else. I didn't bring them here, but where people have tried to attempt to do an anchoring on their own. No. So this is the proper way. So.
You don't have to be in an LFA area to qualify for this.
No. And that's a good point Joe made, because, yes.
Okay, so Shandaken is full of streams that have bridges going across, and some of them are town bridges.
Mhm.
So I'm talking about wider than 20 feet, and some are county bridges.
Mhm.
Is there any kind of study of bridges that are too narrow, causing upstream erosion and threatening stream banks along the side where people have their houses? And is there a list, a public list of any thought of like replacing some of those bridges or at least looking at them?
And same thing there. We're not the regulatory agency, so it's up to DOT. It's up to New York State DOT or Ulster County DPW. It's up to those agencies to determine if that bridge is on the list to be done and what's the actual, they'll do the design process of getting that done, and they'll look usually about 100 feet upstream, about stabilizing the banks upstream and downstream of the bridge. They don't really look too far up unless there's a major erosion problem, and then they may look a little bit further upstream on it. But ideally, they always look right around 100 feet up or downstream of the bridge.
So that would be the county DOT.
Yeah, it'd be like down here, it'd be Ulster County, DPW, DOT, I don't know what you call
And is that taken into account with the FLAs?
it. LFAs.
I would add that we at the AWSMP coordinate with Ulster County DPW and DOT, and they attend our meetings. And we are in contact with them about bridges. And even a few years ago, there was an effort to measure all of the culverts and bridges in Olive, Shandaken, Woodstock, like over 200, over way more than that, culverts, and we have the data on the size of them and which are undersized. It is publicly available, but it's kind of hard to decipher if you're not like, have your head around culverts and stuff like that.
But each of the LFAs, not just some of them,
Yeah,
each of the
yeah.
LFAs looks at every single crossing in the LFA study
In the area, yes.
And there is a recommendation for every single crossing. And the last one we just did, which was Lanesville, we even looked at private crossings and said, you better look at that bridge, your private bridge, you know?
Right.
But for the public, the publicly owned bridges, the county-owned and town-owned, we know the jurisdiction, and then we're in touch with the jurisdiction, so they're aware that we're making these recommendations. And fortunately for Shandaken, you guys have what's called Safari. You have a monthly committee that meets with all of the stakeholders and discusses these things to advance these projects forward.
Yeah, like Heidi touched on, though, with these bridges, with the LFA process, they're identified in that area, any bridges that are, whether be private or public. However, when you come to CWC, we cannot fund private bridges. That's one thing we can't do, because we can't go on private property and start doing all this stuff without getting these easements and buying land and everything else. So we just have opted out of that. I mean, we said we'll stay with the public bridges. So next few slides here. So we also get involved with the New York City Flood Buyout Program. So what happens is when someone has been substantially damaged during these floods and said, I've had enough, I can't do it anymore, or I don't want to pay the high rates of insurance that's going up for flood insurance, what they'll do, they'll come to their local town, they'll ask the town if they'll approve for a buyout or not, and at that point, if the town says yes, let's do it, then they can go to the city of New York and request a buyout from them. The city of New York will come in and do an appraisal of that property, and if the appraisal sounds good to that owner, it's all steams ahead, let's go. If it's not, the landowner can do their own appraisal to come up with a number. And usually if it's within 15% of what the city's appraisal was, the city will bow to that number. So if it's a lot higher, then usually then there's a third appraisal done. The downside of doing a buyout, well, one is losing structures in your community. However, it does take the city up to 2 years to do the buyout process. So once the buyout process has been done, it comes to me at CWC, and that's when we put together a safe work plan and a demo plan for that structure to get it out of there and gone. And we are in charge of managing that, getting these demos done, overseeing the process from start to finish, make sure it's all restored. We have a lot of properties that we've done on demos already. And this is just one down here in Boyceville, where the old Stuckey building was. I don't know how many people might be familiar with that. Okay, it's behind the IGA market. Now it's oh gosh, yes, it's right next to the Esopus River. Floodway.
I only asked because I knew.
Floodway, yeah. It's not flood, it's floodway. So this building was getting direct hits. And so as you can see in the start of it, right there. They have all their asbestos monitors, air monitors up, so they're monitoring the air the whole time that the demo's going on. And over here, they're actually getting into the point where this building's flat now. It's just going to get all the debris out of there. And on the third slide over here is just getting the final restoration where it's all graded off and seeded now. And now it's like a little village or town park where people can go and kind of hang out and play ball or whatever they want to do, go fishing next to the river right there. This is another buyout that we did down here, a little bit further down in Shandaken right here by the Mount Tremper Bridge. And this property set down in the woods, not many people have even seen it. It sits right down next to the river though. Substantial damages, had 4.5 feet inside the house during the floods. So we just did that this past winter. We did this one, tore this down. And then afterwards, the restoration work right there is all done. So we have a couple great contractors we work with. This one here kind of goes back to your question back there with the erosion. All right, so as you can see, the house right here is a beautiful house. However, the erosion just kept going and going and going. This is up in Hunter. And so when the initial call came to me about, I got a problem, I went up, I measured from that post right there out to where the stream bank was 87 feet. And then it drops off 137 feet. All right? So that was when I was there first time. Within 8 months, it kept going and going. Now you're seeing all the exposed leach lines here. They're all down in the river, they're gone. Now the septic tank's exposed. All right, and now when we actually did the demolition, the erosion was right there at the post. So within a short period of time, a lot of land went away. So perfect example of your erosion issue that we stepped in. They did a city buyout. They expedited the buyout process. Like I said, it takes 2 years. This one got expedited because the septic tank was getting ready to go down in the river and all that, and just so it was a fast erosion on this one. So, and this is part of the same property. This is now afterwards. The bank stays as it was. We did not touch the bank because, from what I'm hearing, is there's a future project for soil and water to go in and stabilize this whole bank. It's quite a lengthy area, and like I said, it drops off 137 feet. And now this is the final area over here after the house is gone now. The house was right there. And now they redid it toward the blacktop driveway out and everything. Now it's all just green space. It's owned by the city of New York now.
But that's not the case for everything. Some properties, if the town wants, if the municipality passes it,
They can,
retain it. So it stays with the town, it does not belong to the city. The town can do anything they want except for build a permanent structure.
yeah, and not anything. They can do, like you said, like Joe said, they could go in there. The town, the village, the county can all opt to own these properties once the buyout's been done. The city technically have told us most of the time they don't want them. They would rather see the town or the village, county own them. But in certain cases where they're very close to the river, the city wants that property. So a lot of these buyouts that we do, where flood inundation has happened, the city tends to buy them. But like I said, in this case, town Shandaken has bought a lot of it. I mean, not bought them, received a lot of these properties, so this way they're in town ownership. Yes?
Where does all this money come from?
New York City.
Money from the government, and is it like, is there a check?
It's coming from New York City. Okay, this program is one of the many programs that CWC offers that has to be utilized under the MOA that was done in 1997, a memorandum of agreement. So that's when the 37 towns of the watershed got together, sued the city of New York because the city of New York wanted this water up here because it's so good. And they sued and they won. And so the outcome of it, so the city had to start doing these programs, paying for the septic systems to be replaced, paying for flood mitigation, stormwater mitigation, economic development. What's that? That's why I say I do community wastewater too, but septic, all that. We do all those programs. We pay for them, but we manage those programs because if it was up to the city of New York, not to trash the city of New York, but if it was up to them, it would take forever to get these projects done. So CWC was born in 1997 to take and run these programs and get them done.
Is there any chance it would be slashed, that money being slashed, considering
At this point, no.
times of living?
I mean, at this point, I'm going to tell you no. Is there possibility? There's a possibility for anything. But right now, we're well funded right now. With all of our programs that we have, we're very well funded. Every 5 years, we do a new contract with the city of New York for the flood program alone. The first 2 contracts have been about $15 million each. And we've done several projects off that money. So it's up to us as an agency every 5 years to sit down with the city of New York, start discussing a new contract. Sometimes we have to argue. We have to get to the bottom of it because we, like I said, are here to manage these programs and get them done. And so therefore, we have to butt heads with the city once in a while, which is okay. So, but they're obligated to put money towards these programs because they want the water. So,
Can we actually hold the questions to the rest of the questions till the end? Is
Yep.
get you through a few more slides and then, because we're running a little short on time?
okay, yeah, I'm sorry.
No, that's great. No, we've all had a lot of great dialogue. This is
Okay.
wonderful.
All right, so this one was Robert Drake. Like I say, he's a town board. Oh, you want me to do it?
No, you can.
Okay. So Robert's a town board member here in Shandaken, and he came to us, like I say, to do some mitigation efforts to his house. He couldn't afford to do the whole thing, so that's why he just had all the utilities moved up into this utility room that's going to be built, and we're paying for that, as well as we just did tank anchors on his property as well. And that's kind of the timeline it takes, and then it goes through the feasibility study, the design, and then goes right into construction. So I think I explained all those already pretty much. And this was the basement of his house right here. You got the electric panel. That's out of there now. And there was an oil tank down there. There was a boiler down there. Hot water heater. It's all gone. It's going to be gone, I should say. And I think it's up to you guys now. All right.
It's actually nice.
Max, did you want to cover anything?
No, no, we're basically.
All right, so another program that is available through the Ashokan Watershed Stream Management Program is called the Catskill Streams Buffer Initiative Program, and this offers free plants to homeowners that live on streams in Shandaken, Olive, Woodstock. And the reason why we have this program that will plant trees on your property by the stream is, or give you plants to plant them on your own, is because trees are a really effective erosion control method. And a lot of the issues, common stream management issues that we run into where the stream is creating new turns, it's creating new meanders, it's eroding into banks, it's becoming steeper, it's becoming shallower. A lot of that issue can be linked back to manipulation that has occurred to the vegetation on the side of the stream. And that vegetation really reduces flood water velocity because it provides some roughness in the channel. It reduces the erosive power of high flows so that when it does get out of the banks, it's less powerful. It also provides really high quality habitat. So I'm going to show you a few photos here of some of the projects that the Catskill Stream Buffer Initiative program has done. This is one, Mink Hollow. So look at this light post here. This is before the project. Lots of erosion on this bank. Might be hard to see. Here's the light post. Now this is, I think this was 2024 I took this photo. So really heavily planted. The planting continues up towards the house. And provides a lot of roughness and security from that erosion. Some of these projects are much larger, and they involve rock and plant. So you get the benefit of some of that rock, immediate protection, while the plants still grow. And then as the plants grow and become stronger as they age and become mature trees, get stronger and stronger over time. So here's one, 2011, you can see super exposed roots, exposed bank. Some rock is put in until the plants mature. 2018, the plants are bigger, almost as big as the house here. So if you're, and this is a really good program if you have a little bit of your bank, a little bit of your stream bank that is getting eroded. You just have part of your property that has some erosion issues. Reach out to us. Bobby Taylor is the lead for the Catskill Streams Buffer Initiative. I have his card here. I can hand that out. If you just need a little protection, great program. If you need a bigger protection measure, we do those too. So it's, and I should also mention that the stream management program here, we offer free technical site visits. So if you live in Shandaken and you have a question about the stream on your property, you can call our office and we will come out there, look at the stream with you, get eyes on it, and come up with some ideas on what can be done, which sounds like it's really a valuable program. Very few other places there are people who will get out there, look at it with you, and help you out. So I'm going to hand it over to Anna, who's going to talk about some disaster preparedness.
Thank you, and I'm the final one, so we'll get through this quickly, but thank you for your patience. I won't rush, okay. So I'm Anna, I work for Cornell Cooperative Extension, Ulster County, and we've been doing a lot of disaster preparedness with communities because it's not just flooding. We're just seeing a lot of weather-related disasters and increase in the volatility of our weather patterns. So this applies to flooding, but it also applies to the rise in tornadoes that we're seeing, and just being generally ready in your home if something were to happen. So we're just going to go through 3 quick things and just reiterate this paper right here. I just want to touch on signing up for emergency alerts, making a plan, and building a kit are the best ways to prepare yourself, your family, your household in the event of any kind of disaster. So I know we have our local alert here, so please sign up for this. This is a great way to hear from your town and your community. Getting information out is challenging. There are a lot of avenues to get that information to people these days. So signing up for those alerts, knowing it comes from a trustworthy source is really vital in getting that good information. Some other alerts that you can sign up for, statewide we have New York Alert. That's a program that you would opt into, and that's that QR code here, and I can share that later. And that is anything from weather to Amber Alerts, transportation issues, any major alert, that would be statewide. The other big thing is make sure on your phone, if you have a smartphone, that your wireless emergency alerts are enabled. That would be in your settings, notifications. This is specifically for an iPhone, I will say. Notifications, and then if you scroll to the bottom, there's usually a little area for emergency alerts, and you can just make sure those are turned on, and then when anybody pings a region, you'll get an alert to your phone. So if the county is trying to ping a whole bunch of people, alerting them to a severe weather event, you'll get a notification. But you can turn them off, so just make sure those are turned on. The next part is we want to make sure everybody has a plan. So Heidi touched on this, the Ulster County Parcel View. It's a really great tool to look at your specific property and see where you are. Are you in a floodplain? Where are your property lines? It's a great tool to take a look and identify any potential hazards or just know your risks. The other things to be aware of are, where do you live in this area? Are you on a dead-end road? Do trees often fall during storms? Just knowing those things in advance and knowing what your risks are at your home will go a long way in preparing yourself ahead of time. The other parts of your plan, make sure you designate a safe meeting spot outside of your home. You're not always going to be at your house if a flood happens or if a disaster hits, so just having that designated area outside of a flood zone for everybody to meet up and just designated goes a long way. It's a simple thing, but just knowing where to go if you have to meet up somewhere. And then communicate that plan with all the members of your family, your household, and practice it if you can. Some of this stuff we talk about, it's a good idea. It's a good idea to practice it and to actually put it into play. We always think of it might happen down the road, but these things are happening more and more often. So it's a good idea to get this in your head. Think about where would you go, who would you need to tell, who would need to know where you are if there's any kind of an emergency. The other thing is build a kit, and I apologize, this is bothering me. The formatting got a little messed up when I downloaded, but I think you get the gist of it. It's really good to have a go bag ready. It doesn't have to be full of crazy things, but we want to make sure that the necessary items are in there. So water, 1 gallon per person. That's especially important if you lose water access in the event of a storm. If you're hooked up to municipal water, it's not the end of the world. But if you tend to lose water, make sure you have water. Non-perishable food, flashlight with extra batteries. I'd recommend not putting a rechargeable one in just because it's going to be harder to get that light to work. Sleeping bag or a warm blanket. Important documents. That I just want to pause on. Make sure your documents, your any of your ID cards, your birth certificates, your social security cards, any other paper copies of really important information that you want in a safe space. Make sure that you have those near your kit or inside of it, but also in a waterproof and fireproof container. They make really great envelopes that are waterproof and fireproof now. You can slip all of that information into, keep it in the bag or just nearby. And then Heidi and I were at a workshop today. The other thing to note about your important documents is maybe have a copy of your insurance policy and read that ahead of time and know what is included in your insurance policy. Yes, and the very important point from a workshop we did today, what's expected of you. So you have all that important information, but you know that if a flood happens and your home floods, not to move anything because an assessor might need to come in and take a look at what's been damaged. And if you start to clean up and start to move things, they won't be able to get a full, they won't be able to make that full assessment of the damage. So take a look at your insurance policy, know what's covered, and know what those steps are so that you can ensure a fast approval. A can opener is always a good idea if you put canned food in. Maps of local areas, we rely heavily on our phones, but they don't always work. So just making sure you have an actual map. Toilet paper, I think that one speaks for itself. Trash bags, first aid supplies, cash on hand. Credit cards can go down. So just having a little bit of cash, and then a battery powered or like a hand crank radio so that you can get weather alerts. There's other things that you can put in your kit if you want. This is just kind of a general idea to start with, and just having that bag ready to go and knowing what's in it, and checking the expiration date on that food every once in a while, every few years. One more thing I wanted to touch on that we often don't think of until it's in the moment is pets, or if you have livestock, this applies to them as well. So just thinking about those in advance, this is something that just often gets overlooked and people panic, they don't know what to do in the moment. So just having an evacuation plan for your pets, a buddy system if you have a neighbor that could check on an animal before you go, and then microchipping pets just in case. And then a little kit for your dog or cat as well. So food, water bowl, medicine, collar and a leash, so that you don't panic that last minute, saying, where do I take my dog? And I did just want to mention that Ulster County does have a lot of great emergency preparedness and disaster resources. And so we do have the Ulster County Animal Response Team that does coordinate responses for animals in the event of a major disaster. They would be the ones coordinating a shelter for animals to go to. Since if you are in need of an emergency shelter, oftentimes pets are not allowed. So if you want to learn more about the work that they do or volunteer with them, that link is up there. And then I think, and I just wanted to mention, we do a lot of disaster preparedness. If you're interested in more of that work, I work with the Climate Resilience Partnership, which is mostly in the Hudson River watershed, but happy to answer your questions or direct you to more of the preparedness information we're doing. And I wanted to mention we are working on a county-wide website with the Department of Environment and many other organizations. So we have one website to go to for county information on preparedness. It's a lot of information. We're working on formatting it and doing outreach around that as well. So similar to this event tonight, just making sure people know those basic things of how to be prepared ahead of time. And thank you so much.
Thank you, Anna. Anna, actually, you can stay up here. I'm going to welcome all of our speakers back up, maybe to sit there, and we're going to move this mic here. Oh, maybe, do we want to give everybody?
Both sides of the table.
Yes, sit on both sides of the table. We're going to give everybody an opportunity. We're going to give you an opportunity to ask more questions if you have any. Does that sound okay?
Say something about the hazard mitigation plan
Oh,
and about the evacuation routes.
is that me? Is that, the ones. No. Can you hear me? Well, let's give him a minute. Why don't we wait
Excuse me.
Oh, yeah.
This one is best to share.
Okay.
I think it should.
Oh, yeah, okay.
Excuse me, just a couple of small things here, and then if we have any questions. But
Beth wanted me to mention the Ulster County. Sorry, I dismissed you all. The Ulster County Multi-Jurisdictional Hazard Mitigation Plan. It rolls right off the tongue. This is a plan that Shandaken participated in, they have adopted, and you have a hazard mitigation plan for your entire jurisdiction, your entire municipality, on our Ulster County website, the emergency management website, and on the Shandaken website. It's right there. It's a great tool. It has all the LFA recommendations incorporated into that as LFA implement, or as hazard mitigation recommendations, and is a great resource. And also on that card is the road closures.
Evacuation routes?
Ulster County also has evacuation routes online available as well.
Shelters. The town, well, in the hazard mitigation plan, it lists the shelters with places that are safe to go to when, in case of a disaster.
Okay, I know. All right, I'm going to put this up here for anybody who wants to ask us questions who's remaining, okay?
Yeah.
We'll share this.
Are there any questions from the audience?
Can we do it after the Q&A? Do you mind hanging out for a little bit?
Come to our next meeting and we'll talk about fires.
I still have the same questions,
I don't know. I knew we should have given everybody 5 minutes.
Do we think it's a general?
I think they're done.
If nobody has any general questions for the whole group, I think we'll adjourn. Does that sound okay? Oh, we got one.
How do we get in touch with you if we have an area that we think needs some focus?
Okay, how do you get in touch with us if you have an area that needs some focus? You can always start by reaching out to the Ashokan Watershed Stream Management Program, and we can assess, and we can either put you in touch with CWC or whoever else might be the appropriate contact, and Max is going to give you his card. Yep. Oh, and CWC cards are right up here. I think that's it for general questions. People couldn't wait to get out of here. Hope that was helpful. Thank you all. All right.